Mysterious crash in Outback. Mystery object crash lands in Australian Outback triggers major multi-agency investigation. A mysterious object that crash landed and caught fire in the remote Australian Outback has sparked a major investigation, with experts racing to determine whether it came from space. The strange incident occurred around 2 p.m. on Saturday when a staff at a remote mining site near Newman, a small town about 30 kilometers away, discovered a smoldering black object on a rarely used access road. The area showed no signs of impact or damage, leaving authorities puzzled about how it arrived there. Okay, now it's time to unpack the details of today's story on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so picture this. You're out in the middle of nowhere, really. The Australian Outback. Just vast stretches of red dust. And it's a quiet Saturday afternoon. Staff at this remote mining site near Newman, way out in Western Australia, they stumble across something that just shouldn't be there. A big black object, still smoldering, sitting right on an access road they hardly ever use. And straight away it's clear this isn't, just some random bit of rubbish. This thing was hot, it looked weird, and it kicked off this huge investigation, like multiple agencies, top-level stuff. So our mission today, we're going to cut through all the noise, look at the actual evidence. We'll get into what the experts are saying it is, what the materials tell us, and maybe why Australia seems to be this magnet for stuff falling out of the sky. But the first big question, the thing that really sets the scene for this whole deep dive, is this weird contradiction. The authorities find it burning, okay, but there are zero signs of impact. None. No crater, no scattered bits, just the object sitting there. Okay, so let's unpack that first. That seems key.
It really is key. That lack of a crater, that's probably the single most revealing detail from the get-go. Usually, when something punches back through the atmosphere, especially something sizable, you expect, well, a crash, a bang, a hole in the ground. The fact that this thing landed relatively gently, maybe just sort of dropped vertically onto the sand, well, that told investigators immediately they were looking at something built tough, something designed to handle extreme conditions.
Right. And the reaction kind of reflects that, doesn't it? This was found about 2 p.m. Saturday. And even though Newman is tiny, super remote, just servicing the mines mostly, emergency services were on it like that.
Yeah.
Sealed off the whole area. It wasn't treated like a local bushfire incident. It went straight to a potential high-tech hazard.
Exactly right. The speed shows there are protocols for this stuff. This wasn't, handed off to the local police station. It immediately triggered a coordinated response. You had the Australian Space Agency involved, Fire and Emergency Services, DFES, and critically, the WA Police. Because, interestingly, the WA Police are the designated hazard management agency for space debris in that state. So the moment they suspected it wasn't from Earth, wasn't an aircraft, the whole game changed. It became an aerospace thing, potentially international.
Okay, so let's shift from the scene, the red dirt, to the object itself, this black smoldering thing. What did the engineers actually find when they got hands on it? And how did they rule out, say, parts from a plane so quickly?
Well, the material was the first big giveaway. It's made mostly of carbon fiber, and they pretty quickly identified it as looking like a composite overwrapped pressure vessel, or COPV for short. That sounds technical, I know, but it's actually a really standard bit of kit in rockets and satellites.
A pressure vessel, like a tank.
Essentially, yeah. A super high-tech, high-pressure tank. They use them to hold fuel, or maybe helium, other gases, under huge pressure. They're often made with a thin metal liner inside, then wrapped incredibly tightly with strands of carbon fiber. Super strong, but also lightweight. That's the key combination for space.
Ah. Okay, so the same stuff that lets it hold gases under pressure without exploding, that also helps it survive coming back to Earth.
Precisely. That's exactly it. These COPVs are known for being incredibly durable. See, when a rocket stage or satellite breaks up on re-entry, most of it just burns away, vaporizes basically. Metals melt, aluminum disintegrates. But these COPVs, their carbon fiber structure is designed for extremes. It can often withstand the heat and forces of re-entry much better than other parts. So instead of shattering or melting completely, you might get one surviving largely intact. It might get scorched, sure, but it holds together. And that explains why it might just drop the last little bit, rather than slamming into the ground and making a crater. It solves that initial mystery.
Wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's a real aha moment, like you said. But still, it's just a piece of black composite material, right? How do they know for sure it's not from, I don't know, some experimental drone or even a piece falling off a regular jet?
Yeah, good question. That's where the administrative checks come in. the paperwork trail almost. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau, the ATSB, their job was specifically to check that. They looked at flight paths, reviewed any reports of aircraft incidents. They also examined the material itself. Even badly burnt carbon fiber can sometimes have, like, microscopic clues, maybe material stamps, specific weave patterns. And the ATSB came back definitively. Nope, this doesn't match any known commercial aircraft parts. Not on their logs, which really leaves only one logical place for it to have come from, orbit.
Okay, so the main theory is solid. Space junk, probably a COPV from a rocket. It's been secured, no danger to the public, and the space agency tech teams are analyzing it. But this is where it gets, well, even more interesting for me. Because Australia seems to keep finding this stuff, doesn't it? This is no one-off. Why Australia? Why does it keep landing here?
Yeah, it's not just bad luck. It's about orbits and geography. A lot of satellites, especially for things like Earth observation or sometimes communications, get launched into what's called a polar orbit. So instead of flying east-west around the equator, they fly roughly north-south, passing over or near the poles. Now think about launching something into that orbit. Often, the launch sites mean the rocket has to fly southwards. And the safety protocols dictate that when you ditch spent rocket stages, or when bits are expected to fall back eventually, you aim for unpopulated areas. Usually that means vast stretches of ocean. The Southern Ocean is a prime target for this, and Australia, well, it sticks right out into that area, Western Australia especially. So the paths these decaying objects take as they spiral back down often pass directly over parts of Australia. Yeah. It's just geographically positioned to be under the flight path. It becomes an almost inevitable catch zone.
That makes so much sense. It's just orbital mechanics and geography lining up, and it really clicks when you remember those other cases. Like, just last year, 2023, there was that weird cylinder thing that washed up near Green Head. That's also Western Australia, isn't it? About 250 kilometers north of Perth. I remember the description was odd, like 2.5 meters long, kind of barnacle-covered, but made with some sort of gold-colored woven material.
The gold stuff, yeah. That was a key identifier. The Australian Space Agency looked into that one too, and they concluded it was most likely part of an Indian rocket, specifically from their Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, or PSLV. That gold-woven material is a type of thermal blanket they use on certain rocket stages. So you see, they could actually trace the material signature back to a specific country's launch hardware. It's not guesswork.
Wow, okay. And then there was that even more dramatic one back in 2022. That wasn't something washing ashore. That was people across Victoria, even down in northern Tasmania, seeing this huge fireball blazing across the sky, loud sonic booms, the whole lot.
Right, that was a big one, a very visible reminder. While this Newman object was found after landing, silently smoldering, that 2022 event was the re-entry itself. A massive light show. And investigators traced that back too. It was debris from the upper stage of a Russian Soyuz rocket used for a satellite launch. So whether it burns up brightly like that, or survives mostly intact like the COPV near Newman, the point is, Australia is definitely in the firing line, so to speak.
Okay, we have to address this, though. Every time something unexplained falls from the sky, especially in a remote place, you get the UFO talk. Social media lights up with alien tech this and government cover-up that. How firmly can the authorities push back against that kind of speculation?
Well, they rely purely on the physical evidence. It's pretty hard to argue with, carbon fiber composite when you've got it in your hands. Identifying it as a COPD that's a known piece of human technology, high-tech, sure, but definitely human-made, designed for spaceflight. The fact that engineers are now probably looking at the exact type of carbon fiber weave, maybe searching for tiny serial numbers or manufacturer marks, it tells you the conversation has moved way beyond, is it alien? The question isn't if it's space debris. The question is, whose space debris is it?
Right. So where does that leave the investigation now? The object's safe, the theory's basically confirmed. What's the next step?
The immediate next step is traceability, really. On the ground, the WA police are working with a mining company, trying to pin down exactly when it might have arrived, did anyone see anything, that sort of thing. But the main effort now is with the Australian Space Agency's technical teams. It's like reverse engineering almost. Forensics for space hardware. They'll analyze every detail of the surviving vessel, compare its structure, its materials, its dimensions against databases of known rocket designs from, well, every country and company that launches things into orbit. The goal is to get a positive ID, to say, okay, this COPV matches the specifications used on this type of rocket, which flew on this date, carrying this payload. They want to link it back to a specific mission.
Which really shifts the focus, doesn't it, from just a weird object found in the desert to a question of, well, ownership and responsibility on an international scale. So just to recap where we've gotten to in this deep dive, We started with this mysterious, scorched black object found smoldering on a remote road near Newman. Now we know it's almost certainly a composite overwrapped pressure vessel, likely from a rocket stage, made of super tough carbon fiber. We know why it probably didn't make a huge crater, because these things are built to survive extreme forces. And we know why Australia, particularly WA, keeps finding this stuff. It's down to launch trajectories and polar orbits.
Exactly. The core scientific mystery, the what is it, is largely solved. The challenge now becomes attribution. And maybe, down the line, accountability. How do we manage this increasing amount of space hardware that survives re-entry and lands back on Earth, sometimes in unexpected places? And thinking about that, this whole investigation, trying to nail down the specific mission this thing came from, it does raise a bigger question, doesn't it? You know, the world keeps launching more and more rockets, satellites, constellations. Space is getting crowded. Debris is going to become more common, not less. So how long will it be before we move past these individual, slightly puzzling incidents, before we have systems, maybe automated ones, that can track and identify pretty much every significant piece of debris that comes down? To know instantly, okay, that piece belongs to country X, or that's from company Y's failed launch. That's maybe the next evolution in managing space debris. Something to think about anyway as space gets busier and these investigations continue.
That's a really important point for the future. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Thank you for taking us through this deep dive today.
My pleasure. Until next time.
Okay, one question for you. What exactly is the mysterious object that crash landed in the Australian outback? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.